We love you, God, for more. You are more than anything. We love you, Father, for you are more than anything. Lord God, we love you, for you are more than anything. God, we love you, for you are more than anything. Come on, let's give God some praise right there. Come on, let's give God some praise right there. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. My God from Zion, my God from Zion. God, you're everything, everything we need, everything in our hearts and in our minds. God, you are everything that we ever asked for. I know that this is a solemn day for some, but I need you to understand that in the midst of everything that's going on, the tests and trials of our family, that we stand on the faith of God. We stand on the faith of God. See, people not always are willing to embrace understanding. But how many know that God has got a victory in everything? Yes, He does. God has a victory in everything. We thank you for all the prayers, all the calls, all the words of encouragement, all of the support. And we're going to continue to pull on that over the next few weeks as we go through this process. But there's a victory in the house. I need somebody to understand that. There's a victory in the house. Hello, somebody. Amen. There's a victory in the house. Tell somebody there's a victory in the house.
There's a victory in the house.
See, we can always get into the healing, but healing hasn't happened. So there's a victory, though. There's a win. There's a win. If you have your scriptures with you, I'm just asking you today to open up with me to Judges chapter 7. We're going to read 3 verses. I want to talk to you today simply from a concept of understanding when things break. Understanding when things break. Some like titles, so you can tell them when it all gets broken. When it all gets broken, when it all gets broken. When it's not when things fall apart, but when all gets broken. See, things falling apart means that the structure can no longer sustain what is holding up, and it begins to fall and begins to crumble. But when things start breaking, that means that there's too much that it can handle, and the breaking has to happen for an increase. Can I help you here? A breaking has to happen for purpose. A breaking has to happen. So breaking is not always a negative. A breaking at times has to happen in order for a healing to occur. You see, we talk about this often, that when someone breaks their arm, when it'll never be healed back the way it was in the original, because there's remnants of bone that are fragments of bone that will never reattach. But when the arm is healed, by right and understanding, the arm is actually stronger now than it was before it was broken. Oh, y'all got to understand something. See, sometimes God allows things to break in order to build strength. There's times when God will cause breaking to happen in order for strength to occur, but not only just strength, but also victory in the process. But Judges chapter 7 says this: when I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. And just as they had posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers that were in their hands, then the 3 companies blew the trumpet and broke the pitchers. They held the torches in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing, and they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And every man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran and cried out and fled. So again, I'm talking to you today about when it all gets broken. So I know you're wondering why we even brought up this particular chapter and verse. Why is this of importance? Because this is about Gideon. This is about the victory of Gideon and the trumpets and the sound of how they defeated the Midianites. But there's some things that happen in here that I need you to be fully understanding of, and there's some subject matter that is of importance. Because if we keep assuming that broken means bad, we miss it. Because in the life of God, when someone reaches brokenness, they're not destroyed, distraught, or depressed, but they have actually increased because brokenness has released the glory of God. But we keep looking at broken as something that should never happen, and we avoid it. But you have to break something in order to build something else. In this passage, we see that Gideon has been given instructions by God on how to take the land. And he's told them to gather around and carry pitchers in one hand and trumpets in the other. And you're first to blow the trumpet and then break the pitchers and carry the torches. And this is going to cause confusion amongst the people, and there's going to be victory. But I need you to realize that there's a purpose in why these things happen and why breaking is so important. First of all, when you think about things that are breaking, there's something that must happen up front. Watch this. You will always hear a sound before you see the break. I don't know if you ever wondered or ever think about that, but I mean, I've watched football games, I've coached and all these things, and when I see someone get injured, you hear it before you see it. Oh, come on. Okay, you hear it before you see it. There's always a creaking or a crackling of something, which is an indicator that something is about to break. But we never respond to the signal because we rather respond to the break. In this passage, Gideon has been given instructions, and he tells his army that beyond this moment in time, what you are going to do is blow the trumpet. The first thing he tells them to do is blow the trumpet. He doesn't tell them to break anything. He tells them to blow the trumpet. Why? Because there has to be a sound before there's a change. See, there has to be a sound applied to the process in order for the change to happen. I have yet to meet anyone that just changes without hearing something first. Okay, is that too deep? I'm sorry. Is that too far? I've yet to hear anybody make a move. Okay, you think about it. You watch scary movies, and they watch, the kids. As soon as they hear that, they gone. They walking through the woods, they step on a twig and hear a crack. You hear that? Because what are they doing? They're navigating the woods by sound. Because they can't see anything, but they can hear everything. So it's the moment that they hear something that is unorthodox or against what they are expecting to hear, now they are preparing to go another direction. Your life will never change until you first hear the sound. Nothing will ever be effective in your life until you hear God speak to you in an intricate sound that is only dynamic for you. So when you start hearing God's voice in a manner that no one else could recognize, but yet it is so clear to you that you know it's him, you start adjusting your life, because before you were walking away from the sound trying to find it, but now that you know where it is, you start going towards it. Oh, come on now. We see this in the movies. We talk about white folk like that. We say they always walking towards us. Honey, did you hear that? Let me see what it is. And we sit in the movie and say, like, man, come on, get in the car and go home. You know it's Jason back there. What are you doing? But they're drawn to the sound. Oh, my God. They're drawn to the sound because there's something in the sound that they know is something they've never experienced before, and their curiosity is leading them to be drawn to the sound. But what they don't realize is what the sound is doing is pulling them in, so there's a breaking to occur. Oh, my God. That's why when you hear the sound of God, you hear his voice, it draws you in. It draws you into a point because you want to hear something. You want to know something different than what you've ever seen before. You want to know that if he's hearing your prayers. You want to know if he's answering your prayers. You want to know if you're walking out the will of God. You want to know if you're walking the steps that are righteous. You just want to know that you're doing the right thing. But because you haven't been hearing from God, you don't think that you're doing what it is to be done. But when you hear his voice on a still small sound, all of a sudden you start shifting that direction. Because God is always in the direction of your increase and never in the direction of your decrease. So when you're listening to him, you're not being pulled away from your victory or from your purpose. You're being drawn into it. Ah. But the sound is not only for victory, the sound is also to confuse the enemy. Okay. See, Gideon had the instructions, blow the trumpet. It was 300 soldiers in his army. All of them with trumpets. So can you imagine late in the midnight hour, you hear all this trumpeting going on around you, and you can't tell where it's coming from because it sounds like it's everywhere? Mm-hmm. Y'all missed that. Let me go back. Late in the midnight hour, you hear this trumpeting going on around you, and it's so loud you don't know where it's coming from, and you can't tell. You feel like you're surrounded. Okay, y'all still missed it. Late in the midnight hour, God's going to turn it around because the sound is so great you can't determine which direction to go in because it seems like the sound of God is always around you. Y'all are still missing it. Late in the midnight hour, God turns you around because the sound is so great. You find yourself doing circles trying to find what direction the sound of God is coming from. Y'all still are not getting it because you're still confused. The sound is so great around you in the midnight hour that you can't see where it's coming from, but you can feel it in your very resonance. And now you just need to be still and know that it's God because his sound is surrounding you. Now you've got, okay, all right. So, see, we have to realize that the sound causes change in your life. The sound causes the enemy to flee. But the sound is also a call to fight. See, you ever been in a situation that's just that when people have reached their breaking point, they haven't been defeated. Don't get it twisted. See, a breaking point doesn't mean that you've been beat down. A breaking point means that you have been given so much that you can't sustain it on your own. And now the pressure of the weight of what you have to do is causing a breaking in you in order to increase you. But when you get to a point where you can't handle it any longer, you make a sound. When you're frustrated with the situation, you yell out. When the pain that you want to keep to yourself can no longer be kept, you scream. And if you've ever heard a scream of change, it causes everyone in the room to stop what they're doing and to look the direction in when you heard the scream. Because deep down inside, you're feeling that something's wrong. But in right, God is saying something's right. Because he's saying that person that is screaming is calling you to say, I've had enough of where I've been, and I'm ready for the change. Father, I call on you. That's the sound of the trumpet going before you in the fight. Because when the enemy hears you scream, he knows that he can't touch you anymore. When the enemy hears you cry out, he knows that you are saying from the very being of your body that you have nothing more to give to him. You've had enough of enough, and you are ready to fight again. So I need you to realize, people of God, and when people scream and shout, it's because they have nothing left. They scream out of anger and frustration. They scream when they're mourning. They scream at a loss. They scream because the hurt is so great that they can't function any longer with it. Their screams are powerful. Don't get it twisted. If people are screaming, it's not an interruption or a disruption. The screaming is a change.
Yes, it is.
When people want you to move at a traffic light, they honk the horn. Because they're trying to get you to realize you've paused too long. They're telling you that you have been given permission to keep going, but you haven't moved yet. And because you haven't moved, you holding them up. Right. When you are screaming out afterwards, it's because you've refused to allow what has just caused you to pause too long to keep you stuck in one place. The scream is your way of saying, move, or I'll move you. Get out of my way. I have somewhere I need to be. Yes. You will not stop me at this moment. So I'm going to give you all I can now, and I'm going to leave it right here. See, when you think that the scream, that sudden and earth-shattering scream that just cut through the silence, that interrupted your conversation, all you can do is stand in amazement, and you can stand in awe about what just happened, because you are no longer looking at people with the same confidence. In fact, you are now seeing them as you want them to be seen. They are hurting and seeking help, but they said, I've had enough. Mm-hmm. We go back to that Good Times show when Florida, after the loss of her husband, kept it together until she got in the kitchen and had a moment to just let it sink in. Mm-hmm. And she just threw, watch this, she broke the bowl. Y'all missing something. She broke the bowl, mm-hmm. and she cried out, because at that very moment she realized, I am not going to die as well. I am not going to stop living at this moment. Mm-hmm. I am angry at what happened. I am mad that they're gone. But by God, I'm going to keep going.
Yes, yes.
And she screamed out, and she broke the bowl as a sign of breaking that stronghold that was trying to keep her down. You got to learn how to scream.
Yes, yes.
In order for the breaking to occur. But see, that's just simply one aspect of this. We know he said he cried the trumpet. Mm-hmm. That's what it says, right? The next verse says that Gideon and the 100 men who were with him, oh my God, came to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. And just as they had posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. I need you to understand something. Can I share this with you? I don't want you to be confused, because people are brokenhearted right now. They're still asking questions about what happened. They're not sure what's going on. These are people that might not have all the faith in the world, and that's not a bad thing. But watch this. Anything that God breaks is done so that his glory can be seen.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, it is.
When God causes an interruption in your process,
mm-hmm.
he's breaking the monotony in order for his glory to increase you.
Yes. mm-hmm.
See, watch this.
Yeah.
That just woke you up. Then you just like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
See, the thing that we read in this verse is that the Gideonites and the 100 men who were with him came to the outposts of the camp. We see that. Mm-hmm. Word first thing it says is at the beginning of the middle watch. The beginning of the middle watch. Well, the beginning of the middle watch. This is kind of confusing. The beginning of the middle watch. Okay, so it's at the start of the middle watch. So it wasn't at the start of the first watch, it's the start of the middle watch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he didn't start at the beginning, this started in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, okay, let me say. He didn't start in the beginning. Mm-hmm. This started in the middle. Mm-hmm. Why? Because your change doesn't start at the beginning because you haven't had a reason to change. Mm-hmm. We keep trying to start at the beginning when the beginning can't be the place for the beginning has to happen in the middle. So you have to be in the midst of it in order for the change to begin. That's why they say you have to begin again. Okay, all right, wait. But that's not really what I wanted to say. I'm just threw that out there for y'all. But watch this. History tells us, watch this. History tells us that the ancient Israelites divided the night into 3 watches of 4 hours each, from sunset to sunrise. So therefore, each one was 4 hours. So they started 6 to 10, 10 to 2, 2 to 6. So the middle watch was the watch between 10 and 2. But when they said the beginning of the watch, you're talking about between 10 and 12.
Okay.
So the reason that they're occurring in this format is because at the beginning of the middle watch is the changing of the guard. So you have a group of soldiers who have been on the watch for 4 hours and are ready sleep or sleeping. And you have a new group that are coming to replace them that are just awakening from sleep. So all of them are groggy, tired, and fatigued, and are not in the proper position to defend anything. So when he says to begin in the middle watch, he's telling them to get them at the moment that they are most vulnerable. But he says to begin in the beginning of the middle watch. So the thing about it is, it has to happen before the middle watch ends. Because the middle watch goes from one day to another. So he didn't say attack in the middle of the middle watch, because then that would have been midnight. He said in the beginning of the middle watch, because you have to finish the work before midnight. Because late in the midnight hour, God's got to turn it around.
Right.
See, Paul started praying in the midnight hour and the shackles came off. See, the victory doesn't happen while you're still fighting. The victory happens when you get past that point where only God can do it.
Yes,
So if you are in the fight going into midnight, 12:01, you win. Okay, all right, okay, I'm sorry, y'all missed this. If you are still fighting in the beginning, 12:01, you win. See, y'all have to understand something. The victory doesn't happen the day it happened. The victory happens the day after. See, I read all the messages and the reports, and I'm trying not to get into some things, but everything happened at 11:45. But glory happened the next day. Y'all got to understand.
Yeah.
I remember 7 years ago, they put my wife in an ambulance at 11:30. But glory didn't hit till 12:15. Y'all not understanding. See, the fight was over when the victory was obtained. You keep thinking that you're losing because you keep quitting at 11:59. You keep defeating because you won't fight another minute. But God says if you keep fighting through the middle hour, I'll give you the victory. Because see, scripture, history, look at history. History never talks about the first hour, the first watch. It never talks about the first watch. Because the first watch is never important. Because the first watch is when sun sets. So you still seeing what you into. The middle watch, you can't see a thing. It's late, dark, and dead and dreary. So you're not even sure what you're fighting. You just know that you're fighting. He don't even talk about the last watch. Because by the last watch, the victory's already won. So there's no need to watch. So you got to get through the middle watch. He says in the beginning. See, my God's from Zion, you got to understand. It goes back to creation. Because in the beginning, I believe, started at the middle watch. In the first watch, he witnessed that there was nothing going on, nothing happening, and he made a decision to do something. He did it in the beginning. And then he moved it into, so by the time midnight happened, creation had existed, and then he created man. Oh, y'all missed that. Y'all missed that. He didn't create man until after the third day.
That's right. After midnight,
After midnight. Because we walked in victory by birth and creation, but we put ourselves back in sin because we stopped fighting at 11:59. Okay, so y'all understand the changing of the guard. He waited till the changing of the guard. He waited at the beginning of the middle night hour so that he could do his attack. Because it had to happen at a moment of confusion for the enemy. Not for you. See, when the enemy is confused, it's the best time to smack him in the face. Because they don't see it coming. See, they stand in your face and you ain't going to do nothing. You ain't strong enough. Wait. Did you just hit me? Because he didn't expect it. Your greatest victory comes when the enemy unexpects it. Because the enemy thinks he has you. But when he sees you standing up and rising out of the ashes, he's confused. Because he beat you up in the first watch. But he forgot about the second watch. The middle watch. He forgot. It's 3 rounds to this.
Yes, it is.
By the third round, he's knocked out and you still standing. You got to realize that he comes in the confusion, but you have to defeat him in the confusion. So we understand when it happened. So you got to start fighting. If you feel like you got to wake up in the middle of the night to fight, better make sure it's before 11.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep fighting through the 12. If you're fighting at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's a new battle.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's a new battle. That means that you already defeated the last one, and now the new one has shown up. You ain't see it coming. Okay, I'm sorry. So Gideon tells them that once you get in place in the middle hour, blow the trumpet, and then break the pitchers to release the torches. We understand the blowing of the trumpet is the sound. But why are they carrying pitchers? See, when you read the scripture, it says, and break the pitchers. When you go down 2 verses into verse 20, it says, and the army broke the pitchers, and in their hand was torches. You can't have a pitcher and a torch in your hands and a trumpet. You don't have 3 hands. You don't have 3 hands. So how do you have a trumpet, a pitcher, and a torch in your hands? You only have 3 hands. What was going on was they was carrying the torches in the pitchers so that the army, so the Midianites could not see the light from the flames. So when he told them to blow the trumpets, they were blowing the trumpets, and at the same time they broke the pitchers, which released the torch. And because of that, the light was so great around them that it blinded the Midianites because they could not see what was in the sound or where the light was. All they know was they were surrounded by this great light and this great sound. Y'all with me? Here's the problem. The light could not be released until the breaking occurred.
Yeah.
See, they carried the light in the pitchers, which reduced the light, so it just enough for them to see where they were walking. But when they broke the pitcher, it released the true illuminance of it. This is what I'm talking about. When you're in this battle, something has to break in order for the glory of God to be released. Something has to break in order for the light of God to be shined. Something has to break so that what truly is there can be revealed. But you've been walking around with a pitcher because you're afraid to break the pot. But if you drop it, he just says, break the pitcher, break it. Because in the midst of the breaking, what you're doing is you're releasing all that you've been carrying and consuming it in the fire of God. And through the trumpet sound, you're crying out, and at the end of the day, what you're doing is saying to the enemy, I'm free. You've now acquired victory because you have released everything that you were holding on to, trying to be strong for people that don't need you to be strong. Again, the pitchers contain the lighted torches. They contain the lighted torches. So when you break the pitchers, resulted in the release of the torches and created a light that was so great that it would cause greater confusion to the Midianites. The thing that the enemy is not expecting from you is your willingness to be broken enough for God's light to shine greater than you. Doesn't Scripture not say that no man puts the lamp under the lampstand under the table, but they leave it on it because they want the light of God to shine. We are that light. But because we've put a shade on it, covered it up because we're embarrassed by our sin, we don't want people to really see who we are. We never reveal who we could be. But if we can break ourselves and break what's holding us up, the light of God will shine out. He breaks us so his glory can come forth. That's why I must need you to realize we must break what is preventing the light from shining in our lives. We must break what is preventing the shining of God in our lives. People are hurt today. I'm not even going to avoid that. I'm not going to ignore that. It's no reason. People are hurting today. But they have understanding.
Yes.
And because this is not my first time being in this experience, I understand that this understanding is just a numbness until the finality happens. Because the finality is that day where you can break everything and release that sound so that you can live after that. But there's understanding today. Because people realize that the battle in one life is over. But now they got to fight through it. Tell someone, fight through it.
Fight through it.
Fight through it.
But when you start understanding that a breaking has to occur in order for God's glory to be released, you have to start thinking about the things in your life that are walls that you built up, pots that you created, covers that you sewed, that you put over things. Because you didn't want people to deal in those areas. You didn't want people to touch you in those areas. You didn't want people to communicate with you in those areas. You didn't want people to touch you in those areas. When you start thinking about how many places that you hid, how many places that you shied away from, how many places that you was ducking and avoiding, you begin to realize that there's some fighting that you have to do. Because you created a wall between you and your victory, and the only way to tear it down is to sound the trumpet and release the glory. But in order to do that, you have to break away. Breaking means letting go and loose, release. It doesn't mean that you'll let go forever. It means you got to let go long enough to live. You got to let go long enough to stand. You got to let go long enough to grow. You got to let go long enough to expand, because you're in the way from whatever you need to grow from getting the oxygen it needs to live. You look in the mirror and you see yourself as a butterfly, but you don't see the wings flapping because you don't realize that the butterfly is encased in glass. See, you can still see it, but there's no air in it. It is not until you break yourself that the air of God can touch the butterfly and the butterfly can breathe and live again. You've been in a shell too long. I don't know who I'm talking to. You've been in a shell too long. And you think everything is good because everybody can still see you, but they can't touch you, and God can't reach you. Oh, y'all ain't heard me. They can't touch you, and God can't reach you because you've built a wall and built a shell around you that just because you're saying I'm naked and not ashamed, but the fact that they can't touch you means that you're naked and ashamed. Because you saying see me in all my glory, but yet don't touch me, because you're limiting your help. Trying to protect yourself from what you think will damage you. You're limiting the help in the process of trying to protect yourself from harm. But God says, if you can just break that shell, I will pour into you a greater spirit. One that will change and transform you, give you power and give you authority. But I need you to break the shell. And the only way you could is cry and scream. Because see, here's the thing about it. Your encasing is so strong and so transparent that people are seeing you crying inside, but they can't hear your screams. Oh God, who am I talking to? They see you crying and they see you screaming, but they can't hear your screams. Because the shell that you created is preventing you from releasing to a point where people that could help you can be called upon to help you. And you find yourself bitter and angry and saying, no one is there for me. And it's not that they're not there for you. They're walking by because they can't hear you. And you think the only way that you can get the help is they see you. But the only way that you can get the help is if they hear you. When you look at the parables and the healings of Christ, the man cried out in the crowd and drew the attention. It was only the woman with the issue of blood who touched him first. But everyone else called on Jesus and he heard them. You are stopping your greatest weapon because you've sealed it in a casing of your own creation and figured just because you're in the midst of the crowd, I'm okay. You a bubble kid. It's a wonder how you're still breathing in your bubble. It's a wonder how you're still functioning in your bubble. Your bubble is so great that it creates a personal space around you, a barrier that people won't even get close to you. And you're wondering why no one wants to be a part of your world. Because they can't get close to you because of your bubble. They can't reach you because of your bubble. You can feel the rain, the cold, and the heat of the day, but you can't hear the sound of the drops because of the bubble. You have the ability to reach out from it and eat and consume things. You can pull your food in, pull your drink in, your drugs, your alcohol. But the bubble is too strong for you to pull anyone in. So people can get close to you, but not close enough to touch and change you. People can get close to you, but not close enough for you to be affected by them. You see that person that your heart start beating different for, and you want to be with them, but your bubble prevents them from getting close. And every time you get close to them, it seems like they back away. They're not backing away by their own choice. Your bubble is pushing them. And they're backing up because every time they get close to you, they feel like they're hitting a wall. But when you break the bubble, you've breathed the air you've never breathed before. You feel a wind you've never felt before. You're able to be more personable again and grab the hand of your neighbor and spend time and break bread because you broke your bubble. You can now see. And they can see you, and they see that you're not clothed, and they can reach in and give you something to wear because you broke your bubble. They can hear your cries and can come to your assistance and help you because you broke your bubble. They can find something to hold fast to now. And you can see and be affected by the people around you. Because you're no longer living in a bubble, a boundary, a barrier preventing you from being touched. You now have the ability to be personable, to be close. You start gaining friends. You start hanging out with people you never hung out with before. They start pouring into you like before. They start asking from you, and you start pouring into them, and your life begins to grow differently. And suddenly you start realizing that you're walking a little higher than before, and your back is lighter because you didn't realize in the midst of you reaching out to people and your bubble being broken, you're gaining wings. Because the bubble is a cocoon. It's a shell. And once you broke it, you start morphing into something different. And people can see who you are now. But the thing is, what did it take for your bubble to break? I'm sad to say that for some, it took the loss of someone that they witnessed that never lived in a bubble. To see someone that was never afraid of life now lose it. And it caused people who were in a bubble to break out of it so they can live as well.
Yes.
Just when you think your world has ended, your world has lived, because now you've been broken through because your trumpet screamed. You broke your picture, and God's glory has shone through so that you can be victorious and live again. Everybody standing on your feet.